Hi everyone, how's everyone doing today? Welcome to my photo editing live stream where uh, you can submit your images before the stream starts, and I edit them here for you live using DxO's Photolab, and I'm on 9.5, or version 9.5. And let's see. Um, as always, this is not a critique of the photos or anything like that. I'm simply showing you my workflow for editing photos and the tools that I use in DxO and the kind of results you can achieve. And there's really no better way to show off what DxO can do if with if not for your own with your own photos, that is. So that said, I am an affiliate for DxO as well. So if you'd like to try DxO, I have my affiliate links down below. It's just robtrek.com/DxO. And if you click on that link and use my coupon, you can get 15% off the current price. And it's a good deal. It's a one-time payment, and that includes, I think you can use it on up to 3 different computers, as well as 2 years of updates on the DxO modules for the optical corrections and whatever else they do. They usually do mostly bug fixes and then add additional cameras and lenses to their database in the updates. So all that said, without further ado, I see Larry's here, John Truman. Good to see you. Wow, it's been a while, John. And Paul, Jeff, and Palumbo. Let me see. I've downloaded the images, and we'll go over to the screen. Let's see. Looks like everything's working, and everybody can see and hear me okay, I hope. I'm going to turn down the audio just a tad. Okay. So we'll start one here from Jeff Painter. Looks like a nice little house with a statue. Um, Gosh, there's not much to do here, but my workflow generally, I like to look at the overall composition, the exposure, the white balance, just sort of global changes when I first look at an image. Um, like if I have to straighten the horizon or do any perspective corrections, particularly with architecture. And on the exposure, if it's too bright or too dark, of course, we'll make global adjustments there first as well. And then white balance. And this is a simple outdoor scene in terms of white balance, so not much to do there, unless I want to do something creative. But composition looks pretty well balanced, maybe a tad bit more foreground that I would use. And I edit these photos as if they were my own. So again, it's not a critique, and it's always very subjective, the things that I do here in terms of composition and editing. So I think I'll start with the optical corrections and denoising. I have a preset for that. It's a standard DxO preset as well. I just add a couple other tweaks to it. And I also like to make sure that there's no down arrow. Like on this image here, there's a little arrow here. That tells me that I need to download the optical module for this image. And the optics module is basically the camera and lens optimization, and it's an intelligent optimization, so it does really the best job, I think, of any of the photo editing software out there. For example, Lightroom uses the camera's built-in optical corrections, but DxO has gone a step further and did some additional corrections and testing to get the very best out of a camera lens combination. And of course, denoising is their other signature technology, which is, the very best in my opinion. So let me apply that basic preset first. And you can see it did a little bit of distortion correction. And I think composition, I'm going to go a little bit wider, like a 16:9. And then we'll just balance this a little bit. I don't know if I need this guy in there. A little bit off to the side. And I'm just balancing the spacing here on the left and the right. Maybe the top and bottom. Just a little bit here. But down here, I'm gonna leave a little bit of foreground. And I'm always very conscious of my corners. This image doesn't really have any corners to work with respect to like leading lines. So I don't need to do anything there. I'm going to apply a perspective correction just to straighten out the lines a little bit. And looks just a tiny bit off, so I'm going to back it off just a little bit just to make it look a little more natural. And on the house, the statue, we have really good separation as it is, but it's just a little bit too bright over here relative to the statue. What I might do is, let me just select the house. I'm just going to use the AI tool like that. And I'm going to hit the shift key and add in just this area in here. Maybe over here. And these tiny pillars. Okay, so let's just do a global pull on the exposure. And a little bit on the highlights. Then I'm going to add some clear view and micro contrast just to bring out the texture in the stones and the bricks. Come up just a quarter stop there. Okay, and I think the sky's okay, but let me go ahead and select the sky. Maybe try some clear view there just to give it a little punch. And I'm just going to add a little bit of warmth to the left side. So I'm going to use this, use the control line. I'll bring a little bit of light. And I'm going to put the dropper on the statue here. Let me just pick, go to the brighter areas. I'm going to tighten up the luminosity mask a little bit. Maybe add a little bit of warmth. I'll back off the magenta. Okay, and then the last thing I might do is a little bit to the grass. Make a new mask. We'll select the AI tool. Select the grass. I'm just going to just bring the blacks in a little bit. Maybe the shadow. Just to make it look a little richer. Let me see, maybe some clear view. Just to give it some texture. And a tiny bit of micro contrast. Just a tiny bit there. Okay, and I think that's all this image needed. So we'll go ahead and export that. This into the original folder, no resizing. And I use a suffix in the renaming as DxO, so I know that's been processed, and sRGB. Okay. And the first image, as always, it takes a good 15-20 seconds, but then after that, 6 or 7 seconds per image to process on my computer. So let's go ahead and reset the original. And we'll compare it to the output, which we just created. And we'll do a side by side. I'm going to hit the F9 key to push the panels to the side. And there you have it. So nice clean image. Not a lot to do there. But we can do maybe a slider. So I want to zoom in on the brickwork just so you can see the difference. Maybe actually side by side still might be better. So that's the difference in the brickwork in particular. And again, a little bit of warmth. And I think the crop works well. A 16 by 9 just gives it a more landscapey feel. All right, very good. Thank you for sending that. Okay, we have one here, and I'm going to hit F9 key to bring the panels back in. We have a cool little squirrel here. And let's apply a basic preset. That is cool. He's just kind of hanging out in this log. I like that. Composition wise, and the exposure is a little bit bright, so I'm just going to pull it down just a little bit on the global. And the white balance is just a little bit too warm. I think just back this off to about 50, 58. I guess that's fine. And take out some of the green, because there's a very strong green shift here because of all the grass. Maybe that's what it needed, was just a little bit less green. Yeah, we'll stay there. So I just shifted a little bit magenta. The composition is just a little bit tilted to the left, so I'm going to tilt to the right tiny bit. And I'm just basing it on this log. This log might be crooked, but since there's no horizon to level things, I'm just going to use the log as a reference to look more vertical. Okay, about like that. And when I'm doing cropping, I generally stay simple rule of thirds. And I kind of like that this guy is a little bit facing to the right. So I'm going to just lean into this composition where the squirrel is on the right side of the frame. Okay. I think that's a little bit different, right? Okay, now I'm going to darken the background a bit because it's a little bit distracting. Don't know if the AI tool will pick it out. Oh, not bad. I'm going to hit the shift key and just add in a little bit more down here. And let's just pull the background down a bit. Just using the different sliders. Okay. Not bad. Now I'm going to add a little bit of red into the foreground just to contrast the green color. So let me go ahead and select the squirrel. We'll start there. And I'm going to use the color wheel here. I'm going to stretch this into the yellows and oranges. And let's just give it a little more saturation. And we'll do the same thing with the log. Let's make a new mask and see if I can get in here right about there. And hit the shift key and just add a little bit more. I think we're good. So Same thing here. I'm just going to push the reds and oranges. I'm going to stretch that a little bit. Okay, and then the only other thing is the highlights here are a little bit on this plant here in the front. Excuse me one sec. Okay, sorry about that. Let me see if I can. I don't think the AI tool will be able to select that, but maybe. Let's see if we can. We can go to about there. Oops, not that one. There we go. All right, not bad. Let's go ahead and just pull the highlights, maybe give it some clear view and a little micro contrast. All right, then the last thing I'll do here is maybe just add a little extra vignette. We'll start a new mask. So to create a vignette, if you don't have the film pack module installed, you just use a control point, you invert it, and then, oops, that's not invert. This is, no, yeah, that's right, invert. And then turn the chroma and luma down to 0. And two ways you can do, create the vignette. You can just drop the exposure down. That's the quickest way. Or I like to do it using the selective tones so it looks a little more natural. And generally I try to keep a straight line on the selective tone sliders here. So, you know, we can compare that. I think that looks, that's an easy way to add a vignette without really adding a vignette. Okay, and then the squirrel itself, I don't think we'll be able to recover any color in the pupil here. Let me see if I can bring out a little bit maybe. So for eyes, I just push the shadows, crank up the clear view and micro contrast. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to do much there. And I'm just gonna pull the highlights a little bit here. And then maybe add a little bit to the ears and nose. So, you know, animals generally it's eyes and ears and nose, and paws or claws. Those are the things I like to emphasize. We'll just add a little bit of light inside the ear. A little bit on the nose. And I'm going to try and pull the highlight on this ear in the back. Although that might be clipped a little bit. Okay, that looks good. All right, now let's see if we can optimize the sharpening a bit. So there's a little bit of softness in here. Let's work let's work in here. I just used the loop tool here to zoom in, and you can adjust the loop to different zoom levels. I think 200% will work well here. So let me go back to the squirrel mask. This one, right? Okay. Pull up the loop tool, and then I'm just going to fine tune. Now that I've selected the squirrel, I'm going to fine tune all the way down here at the bottom, some sharpening. Just add a tiny bit here. A bit too much. Right about there. Okay. Let me just zoom out and just look at it one more time. Maybe just slightly tighter crop. Okay, let's export that. And we'll do a comparison. And also, you know, every 2 or 3 images, I'll go back to the chat section and answer any questions. I see there's one there now from Mark showing the hue selection tool, and then reduce the selection to just what you selected when it over selects on similar hues in other parts of the image. So when we refer to hue, we're talking about color. So I'll see if I can demonstrate that. All right, so let's reset this one and hit the F9 key and compare side by side with the output. And yeah, so I think that crop is just right. Looks nicely well balanced. And when I was cropping, I was trying to keep in mind that the log here is centered as much as possible. That's just a subjective choice. And I think a little push on the reds contrasted the greens very nicely, and then darkening the background. And let's see how the sharpening came out. Not bad. Not bad. And we got a little bit of the noise out of there too. Okay, so that is yeah, I think that's a nice clean edit. Okay, let's do this one. And I got an email from Glenn about this image. He wanted to see get an idea of how to separate the kingfisher here from the background a little more. So typically I like to do it using differences in exposure, like I did with the squirrel just now. I can do something similar to this one, and that may be enough, but I'll maybe try and blur the background as well without affecting the bird itself. And I'm going to apply, I think, you know what? I just remembered I did not apply optical corrections. So on this one, so actually, because I forgot to download the optical module here on the squirrel. So let me do this. We'll even get better sharpening out of the squirrel. I want to do this to show you the difference of using an optics module versus not having an optics module like every other editing software out there. Whoops, I accidentally. Okay, we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and let me see. Optics module is usually here. This one. And we'll apply some other basic presets here. And this is this is a JPEG, so the optics module is not really going to apply. Ah, because I'm editing the JPEG. Hold on. Whoops, whoops, whoops. What I need to do is go back to okay, this was my edit. All right, let's go ahead. So now the optics module is being applied by denoising. Okay, so all I'm going to do, now that we've applied the optics module, all I'm going to do is export this. And we'll call it number 2. And then we'll compare side by side the original one without the optics module and then this one with the optics module. No other changes, right? Same editing. So we're going to use this as a reference image and select that. So let's see if it made a difference. So this one on the left, I believe, is the one with the optics module. And this one on the right is without. So yeah, you know, I don't really see much difference here. Tiny bit on the whiskers. Very subtle. But there's just a little bit better detail on the whiskers and the very fine hairs. So you can see it's just a little better, especially in this area here. Okay, not a great example, but it's very subtle. But there is a little bit of difference with the optics module on this one. Sometimes the differences are more dramatic, right? Especially with lenses that aren't as perfect as the 300 f4 that John was using here. But okay, let's go ahead and go to the Kingfisher here. We've applied the optics module. And I think composition-wise, I want to minimize this heavy rock over here. I might even go vertical. But this might be okay. We'll just put the Kingfisher more or less in the center. And this rock definitely has to be darkened. I'm just going to use the AI tool. And I'm going to just do an exposure pull. About right there looks good. And let's make a new mask. We'll select the Kingfisher. Like so. And I'm going to brighten him about a half a stop. Then I'll go globally and just pull back. Not quite a full half stop, but maybe about a third. And go back. Let's add a little warmth. Whenever I increase exposure, I tend to add just a little bit of warmth when I make something a little brighter. And usually within 500 kelvins. If I make it too dramatic, it'll be obvious, but there's 300 or 400 Kelvin there. Okay, let me just do a quick. Yeah, we shifted the light away from the rock and onto the bird. I think that by itself makes a pretty good difference. Now on the bird, we're still on the bird here for masking. Just gonna add a little vibrancy. Just on the main channel here, which is all colors. This white just represents all the colors to the right. Add a little bit of vibrancy and color. Now let's get in on the eyes and the beak. So with birds, it's always eyes, beak, and talons, right? So not too dissimilar from any animal in that respect. Make a new mask. Oops, sorry. I'm going to select the control point. And see if there's a little bit of pupil in there. Okay, good. And let's pull the highlight just a bit on the beak. And add a little micro contrast. Then I'm going to brighten up to his food there. Make a new mask. Maybe the AI tool can grab it. Let's see. Yeah, not bad. Most of it, anyway. We'll just shift control. We'll hit the shift key and click a little bit here. Okay, that's good. And let's just do a linear push on the exposure. Add some clear view, micro contrast. Okay. Whoops. I want to compare to the original with geometry. Yeah, I think the bird is standing out pretty well here. I can take this a little step further. If I select the bird again, well, if I want to blur the background a little bit, so I'll take a graduated filter in this case. Just bring that down. We'll make it relatively tight, something like that. Go all the way down here to the bottom. There's a little blur tool slider. And, I try not to do too much. I don't want to do that much. But usually I stay under 25. I think in this case, something around 15 looks good. Now that blurred the entire layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a submask. Go back to the AI tool and select the Kingfisher again. Give me a second. Like so. And then I'm going to use this hole puncher. They call it invert shape. I just call it a hole puncher. Like that. So now you can see, I'll show you the difference. That's without making the background blurry, and that's with. We lost a little bit of the speculars on this water here, which is kind of interesting, but I just wanted to show that technique. So without blurring it and with blurring it. Okay. Now the white balance, I should have worked on that first, but let me go back here to the color. Let me select maybe vibrant. Yeah, I like vibrant. And let's just warm up the image overall. Just a tad. Let's pull back the magenta a little bit. I think the background's just a little bit too dark. Let me go back to my background mask. Where is that? Let me select the bird. Let me come back about. I'm just going to make this separation of the the bird and the background a little bit tighter. And I think the rock is fine. Now let me just add a little bit of a graduated filter down here. And make it a little darker. Make it a little more gradual. I'm going to spread this. And let's add a little light to the background, particularly on the green grass. I'm going to put the eyedropper on something green like this. We'll spread this down to here. And let's tighten up the chroma just a notch. And let's add a little bit of warmth. Like that. And I'm going to spread this down. So maybe a slight push on the highlights. A little bit on the midtones. Let's stretch it a little bit more. Okay. I think that's pretty good. Now this wing needs a little bit of warmth as well. So I'm going to add another, make a new mask, another control line. Kind of starting from the same point and ending near the same point. But this time I'm going to put the eyedropper maybe on the wing. Let's find a nice kind of a neutral area right about there. Let's tighten that up a bit. Then let's add a little bit of warmth. There's a lot bleeding over here. I may have to. I might be better off using a brush. Let me try it. Let me see how that looks. Yeah, that's working. Let me go back to my grass. And I'm just going to back this off a little bit. I'll just pull the opacity. Because these two masks are overlapping a little bit. I'm just going to pull the opacity on the grass. All right. Let's export that. Oh, wait. One last thing is let's just check the fine detail. And let me go back to my bird mask. I think it's this one. Yeah. And let's do a little bit of more optimization here. And a little bit more sharpening. Might be too much. Back this off. Oh, a little bit of motion blur. These kingfishers, they're pretty fast, so I typically shoot kingfishers at least 1/4000th of a second. Because they're small and they're very quick, right? Like backyard birds. You really have to be at like 1/4000th because there's still a tiny bit of motion blur in here. But overall, really good. Really good shot. Okay, let's export that now. And take off that suffix. Export. And let's go ahead and reset. And we'll compare side by side. Okay, so here's the original on the right. So I just did a little tighter cropping, add a little bit of warmth, and separated the bird in two ways, right? I lowered the exposure of the background, and I also blurred it just slightly, 15%, separate from the bird itself. And I think that came out pretty good. And we can check the fine detail. Again, we have to account for a tiny bit of motion blur in here. But I think that came out pretty good. Especially, I got a little bit of the pupil in there, which I like. A little bit of color there. All right. Oh, Glenn, you're here. Good. I'm glad that helped. So hopefully that separated the bird from the background, uh, in a natural way. It's a little bit warmer. I think I should probably back off the warmth a little bit. But yeah, it's a little bit too warm now that I'm looking at it. As always, the most important part of editing is to stop and come back after a little while and look at it again. And with every one of these images, I'm sure if I came back 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, I would make some additional tweaks. And that's just a normal part of the editing process, right? Okay, so let me just go back to the chat section one more time. And I want to address Mark's question. Oh, I got the chat mixed up here. the it's going up in the small window. Let me fix that real quick before I go any further. Okay. Nope. There we go. Awesome. All right. So Mark says, hoping that you can show the use of the hue selection tool and then reduce the selection to just what you want over selects on similar hues other than parts of the image. So, uh, what would be from today's, this is fairly monochromatic, but there are some very similar hues, right? Sort of a greenish here to the brownish. But let's say I want to select one or the other, the greens or the browns. We have a hue selection tool, and I think you only get this if you have Film Pack installed. Yeah, this is the hue mask right here. This, oops, I'm sorry, you're not seeing the screen. So this, we want to separate maybe the browns from the greens a little better because the hues are very gradual from, you know, this algae, some of it's dying and turned brown and some of it's green. So this would be a good example. So I'm going to select the hue selection tool here. It's called the hue mask. And I'm going to select the browns. So when I select that, you can see over here, I can expand a little bit using this slider. So it'll gradually expand into the other colors. So this is the smoothest way to do it. If I wanted very harsh transitions, I could close these up, and you can see it's going to only select the color I pinpointed to. But I can have it sort of feather into the other colors around that brown. So I like to push these a little bit this way. And that might be too much. The other thing I can do is if I grab the arrows on top here, this is going to grab more and more colors. This is not feathering into colors, it's just grabbing more colors around the initial brown that I selected. Because if I go all the way out, it's going to select every color, right? Like if I just expand this to the entire color range, basically selecting everything. Or let's do the eyedropper again and select that. Or if I feather into all the other colors, you can see it's not quite as dramatic. Like it's not touching any of the blues over here. So let me go ahead and select the brown area again. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So I can kind of just gradually feather into the colors around that brown so it looks natural. And then I can just increase the saturation of just those browns or reds, whatever it is. I can also, if I didn't want to do that, I can do even narrow selection by selecting in the color wheel itself, in addition to the hue selection, only increasing the reds. Maybe expand that just a bit like that. So there's a couple of ways to do it. You just have to kind of experiment a little bit, but just get a feel for the bottom sliders and how much they bleed into or feather into, or you want to select a wider range of colors. Like if I wanted to get into the blues, I could push this probably like this. Let's see. And then go down here to the color wheel. I can select the blues and increase that, or if I just select all colors, which is the white dot here, it'll brighten up the reds and the blues in this case, and the greens, red, blue, you know, every color on the thing. All right, so hopefully, Mark, that answered your question. And Ethan is here. Good to see you. And Heather and Bamsem here. Good, good. And then Mark has one more question here. How would you make just the white portions of the birds pop? I think we were on the Kingfisher here. So what I would do is, because this bird has basically sort of this gray blue and red orange and then white, right? And you're talking about just the whites. So I'm going to exaggerate. I could do it two ways. If you don't have film pack installed, you can do it with a control point. Selecting this and then selecting, using the control point, just select the white area. And I may have to go around a bit. So right now the masking is selecting more than just the white areas, right? So what I would do is just tighten up the luminosity mask, or I'm sorry, the chroma mask. So it only selects the white areas. I'm going to back that off a little bit because this area is a little bit blue. That's why it's not being selected. So I'll just drop another control point there. So that's pretty much just selecting the white areas, and then I can exaggerate it, right, with the sliders without affecting any of the other colors, as you can see. Okay. And Eric is here, and good to see you. You're up in Dulles. Okay. And let's see. Paul says, Rob, I've selected Enable Deep Prime Rendering in the settings. Okay. It applies Deep Prime to the whole screen and not just the loop tool. Oh, okay. Uh, so I'll have to try that. That's definitely going to slow the computer down because now it has to render the entire 20 megapixel image or whatever your camera image resolution is. I can imagine, especially on larger, like 100 megapixel GFX or Hasselblad, that enable deep prime rendering would really bog the computer down. But that's a great tip. I'd never looked at it. I've always used the loop tool. And thanks again. Okay, Glenn. And Paul says it's a good feature, just knowing that it only works with the latest film pack installed. Oh, okay. So there's a caveat. Yeah, I'm fine with just working within the loop tool, but I get it. You know, if you want to see the image before you export it in its full glory, enable deep prime rendering would be very useful in that situation. Okay, so let's go to the next image here from Paul. Oh, speak of the devil. You say it didn't slow your computer down much. Okay. I'll have to try it outside of the stream. All right, so we have some architecture here. Let me apply a basic preset. And definitely going to do some perspective corrections just to straighten things out. And exposure-wise, yeah, we need to bring the sky down, maybe bring up the shadows here and bring out the textures. Really good job on the corners, though. You already got this corner on the top left and bottom left. Perfect. And a good straight line here. This, I couldn't have composed this image any better than any better than you that you did here. I think the question is, and you have the people almost centered. The question is, what would I do differently? I'm wondering if I can center the people, if that would help at all. I don't know. Let me try. And you can hit the letter R key on your keyboard to bring up the cropping tool instantly. I generally like to go to the panel over here first, because then I can select the aspect ratios. What if I put them more the back third? Then I lose my corners over here. Okay. I think right there is just right. Okay, and we need a slight tilt to the left. All right, let's go ahead and select the sky and just pull the highlights in. Give it some clear view. And it's winter, so it's a very cool light. The white balance is really cool. I don't know if... Let me just subtract a little bit. Okay, and then let's do the sea. I need to get this part in here. Is that more ocean back? No, that's part of the pier. Okay. Let's pull that in a bit. And also cool that off. So just like when I was doing brightening things and I had a little warmth, when I darken things, I like to tend to cool them off just a tiny bit. So let's do about a little bit there. Okay, let's make the shadows more dramatic too. Particularly these shadows. I'm almost tempted to go monochrome on this. Let me just do a quick eyeball. I think the color's more interesting with these browns and blues. Okay, let me get the people a little bit brighter. So I think the AI tool can get them. This person and this person. Didn't quite get the legs. There we go. Okay. Let's just do a linear push. And that's good enough. Looks a little unnatural, but we'll come back to that. I want to get this highlight here before I forget. Maybe add a little micro contrast back in. Okay, I want to separate this sidewalk with this brick sidewalk. I'll probably do it with color. Let's see if the AI tool can grab this brickwork. Oh yeah, nice. Let me make it a little brighter. And add some color vibrancy in. Make that a bit stronger. Maybe some saturation as well. And then let's do another mask. See if we can grab this sidewalk. Not so much. How about these? Let's grab all of this. Give that a little brightening. About a third of a stop and some micro contrast just to bring out the textures. Okay. And maybe desaturate a little bit just to make them a little whiter. Okay. All right. Now let's make the shadows a bit stronger. So let's do a control line. I don't know if I'm going to start from down here. Make a very tight luma mask. A little bit of chroma. Just pull these darker. Oop, not that much. Same thing. Let's see. Yeah, I can't do much there. Let's do a control point, but the same idea. Just tighter luminosity. Chroma. Get right in here. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the brick sidewalk. This one. Add some micro contrast. And go back to the people. I'm just gonna, instead of using that, let me just push the shadows in the midtones. Okay. Do a little of both. So right now, I'm gonna add a little more color down here. Okay. A little bit of a flare spot right there. I think I can fix that with a brush. Just go in very tight. Okay, good enough. Something's still bothering me though. The sky is too dark, maybe. Go up. I think that was the first mask I did. Hmm. White balance, let me see. We were at 56. I did make that warmer. Yeah, I think it's the white balance spread here. What I'm going to do instead of changing it globally, try just a control point. And let's tighten up the luma. And then shift it warmer. Okay, my luma is a little too tight. Let me back that off. And let's add some magenta. Okay, I think I'll call it here. This is a really hot spot though. Let me get my repair tool. I'm gonna feather. Hmm. Obviously that control point. Let's do another one there. Pull the opacity back a bit. And I'm gonna adjust it. Let's see. Oh. It's feathered more. A little more opacity. All right. That's okay. That, I just need a little bit. Whoops. We select this again. Pull the opacity down. All right, I'm going to call it. These pillars, though, could be brighter. Go back to one is it? Now, in very complex edits, you can rename these. So if I hit the F2 key, you know, like this is the pillar shadows, but I ended up not using it. Let me go back to this. Okay, that looks good. Let me just back it off a little bit. All right, where's my pillar shadows? This one. Let's try pushing the highlights. That's too much. A little bit less. I'm just comparing with and without that edit. I think that's good. All right, I'm going to call it. I'm spending too much time here. I want to try to get to everybody's within a couple of hours. All right, let's compare it to the output. We'll reset. Okay, so yeah, this is the original on the right. This is my edit on the left. I went maybe a little bit too crispy. Because I tend to, whenever there's architecture, I tend to bring out a lot of the textures, and there was a lot here. And I think I would back this off a little bit. Let me do that real quick. I'm just going to do it on a global scale. I'm going to go into the special effects, or no, let's go, I'm sorry, let's go to the lighting panel. Let's pull the micro contrast back. Okay. All right, so here's the original on the right. So with the perspective correction, we kind of got rid of this one, you know, this side of the brick sidewalk. This other brick right in here. I think this makes for a little bit cleaner corner on this side. It'd have been nice to get this shadow right into the corner, but I would lose these two sides. And again, it's subjective, you know, me doing that. Maybe fix this little cup down here. Looks like there's a cup or something. Get rid of that. But yeah, overall pretty nice. And if we crop in, you know, we can clearly see the people walking now. A little bit of haloing here. I could fix that, you know, with a negative brush. But other than that, I think it came out pretty good. Especially the sky. The sky looks pretty good. Because this was a really big hot spot, and that was bothering me. So I just tempered it a little bit by cloning some clouds in around the sides. Okay. Let's go to the next one. And ooh, icy waterfall, nice. Very cool colors. I like that. So I'm going to warm up the lighting up here. Keep the cool colors down in here. Let's start with a basic preset. See if we lose any of that. And we need a slight perspective correction, maybe just a tilt, but let me try this. Okay, that's fine. I don't know, that looks a little wonky. Let me just tilt it. Okay. That's some global clear view. Tiny bit of micro contrast. And we're going to light paint a lot in this one. I'm just going to use a brush. Maybe a masking brush. See how that works out. Not bad. Get right in here. I'm just clicking my mouse on the white spots or the lights. I think these will probably be better with a control point. But let me try a couple here and then I'll come back to it. I'm just going to warm that up even more. Yeah, I think I need to add some control points on top. I'm going to do it as a sub mask. And just spread the lighting. Go all the way up. I want to make sure I get just onto the lighting. A little bit down here. We'll just make these a little smaller as we get out. Move over. Maybe back off the chroma a bit. Luma. Uh, okay. Right here is still a little bit off. Oops. Better. All right. Let's do another brush. Flow and opacity is good. I'm going to push the highlights. Kind of pull on the other sliders. Maybe some contrast. A little smaller brush. Okay, let me give it a little more flow. Oops. Okay. A little smaller. Back off the flow a little bit. One second. Okay. A little bit up here. Sorry, I'm concentrating. I'm just light painting. So not much to say other than just watch what I'm doing. I'm just trying to create some contrast, basically, between the ice and everything else. Maybe some micro contrast will help. And see, I need to do a slight crop. Okay. Let me do a little bit of negative here and here. All right, let's cool it off a little bit. Just the brushes. I'm just cooling off the brushes a little bit now. Makes it a little easier to see. Then I'm going to just go back globally and warm the image up. Okay. A little bit uneven in here. All right, let me see where I'm at. Need a little bit of warmth down here. Back to my brush. Needs a little more flow. And the white balance back where it was, give or take. And I should have done this first, but I need to crop just a little bit. Okay, we did some clear view. Get some contrast. A little bit warmer. And there's some colors in here. Let me see, this kind of this greenish brown. What is that? It's purple. Purple in this. That's interesting. So what if I shift those into the blues a little bit? Yeah, I guess that's good. I'm going to use a little bit in here. All right. Might be too much. Okay. These up here need just a little hit on the highlights, midtones, and a little more push into the magenta, or I'm sorry, warmth. Just desaturate a little bit. All right, we're almost there. I'm going to do a little bit of work on the rocks. So let's make a new mask. Let's see what control point will do. Tighten up the chroma, or I'm sorry, the luma. I just need these rocks to be a little more detail. Maybe clear view. Yeah. I'll add a little bit of warmth. Oops. What is it, baby? Are you hungry? Oh, okay. Get down. I'm working. Get down. What time is it? Oh, you just ate. Come on. All right. Here. Down here. All right. The colors here in the waterfall still bother me a little bit. Go over to brush. What if I desaturate? No, a little bit. Just need on the rocks. Need a little more black. I think that's it. Composition wise, I hate to crop anything out because everything in this picture is pretty interesting. So other than cropping out a little bit of this retainer wall on the right side, and I like to got a little more of the buildings up here. That's the only weird part about this image for me is these have too small of a presence, even though they're really adding a nice accent to the image. Because the other option would be to kind of just crop in like this and make, simplify the image a bit. Even though I did all that work up there, I think I'll just, we have this version, which includes this nice warm lighting. It's a nice contrast to everything over here, but it's just chopped off a bit. I think a better composition is something down in here. Like this. And then just make a new mask. Sorry. A little bit of warmth. A little bit there too. All right, I'm going to go with that. Whoops. It's a little bit bright here. Dang it. Just maybe the okay, that's good. And composition wise, a little bit in more. All right, now I'm done. I have 5 more to get to, it looks like. 5 more shots, so I'm gonna stop here. All right, so there's my edit. I think I'm not sure how to, I've never been to Niagara Falls, but I feel like I would have incorporated more of what's going on over here. What lens did you use? 40 to 150, so you're already at 40. So with that lens, I would have zoomed in probably to 100 millimeters and cropped in right in this area over here on the left. But editing wise, the main thing is, bringing out the textures in the rocks, then separating the icicles and things with a little bit of light painting in the water, right? And then whenever there's artificial lighting, like where people might be, just adding a little warmth into that area down in here. I kind of overdid it a little bit, but overall, I think that this simplifies the scene quite a bit. Rather than, that's too bad. I really like the lighting up here. I did a lot of work on it, then ended up just not using it at all. But okay, so that's my edit. All right, thanks for sending that one. That's a cool shot, though. All right. Let's see. We have turkey. I'm not sure. I think this is a turkey, or no. This is a what do you call it? That other bird, peacock. So I think let's apply basic preset and do a slight tilt. Okay. Now let's go ahead and let's select the background and just bring it down a little bit. Maybe cool it off a tiny bit. And then let's add some lighting to the eyes. I think we'll easily get a pupil out of this one. With the chroma. Yeah, there's good color there. Okay. Then let's just do a linear line here. I'm going to select the little bit of the brighter area, the blues. Maybe come back a little bit. Let's tighten up the luminosity mask. There we go. And let's just brighten those up a bit. Okay. Back off. Back that off a little bit. Add some warmth. Hmm. Do kind of the same thing in here. Let's push the shadows a bit. Okay. I'm going to back off the opacity. There we go. I think the image just needs some warmth overall. Go back to the eye. Oops. Make these a little smaller. Okay, let me do the beak. Maybe I'll just use a selection brush. Add some clear view, micro contrast. Okay. Then I just noticed there's some color up here. Oh, it's not color. It didn't get selected. So go back to the ground. Add a submask in here. Be a control point. All right, that's better. I'll add another control point right there. Let's tighten up the luma. Try to make those stand out a bit more. A little bit on the chroma too. All right, let's see where we're at. Eye's a little bit too bright. Okay. A little bit of brightness here. Let's add a vignette. Okay. Drop. Where's my control line? This one. Let's drop this back. Not this one. It's the other one. This one. Okay. Try a different color profile. Maybe vibrant. Back to the eyes. All right, we'll call it there. Oh, some fine feather detail. Let's see. I think we're good. This is really sharp as it is. I could just do a tiny bit, just globally. All right. Oops. Do a comparison, side by side, reset, and F9. Okay, so yeah, eyes and beak on this one mainly, and then just accentuating the color, I'm sorry, the luminance here a little bit, so it's a little brighter. That's it. Okay, let's go to the next one. And I'm going to take a break here for 1 minute. Been drinking a lot of matcha tea. So let's just take 1 minute break and I'll be back and we'll work on this next image. Now we're back. Okay. Thanks for your patience. Let's get into this one. This one's from Hans. Okay. Uh I think what I'll do here, composition wise, this foreground is not enough. It's nice to get a little bit lower to the ground and get more of that foreground in to split this up a little better. Like foreground, midground, background, right? So I might have to do a pretty tight crop. Try 16 by 9. Wait, let me apply basic preset first. Now let's do a crop. And maybe just frame a little bit. Let's even that out a bit. Try a wide crop. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. Now we can just focus on the textures, right? And not worry about the depth of the image, but on the textures, because the depth was kind of lost by not including enough of the foreground. Okay, I'm gonna make this kind of dark. Let's add some micro contrast. A clear view. And it's the water here. See if we can separate some of the tones. Uh, let's do some regular brushing. And just separate. Right, I'm just trying to create a little bit of depth here with light. Okay, and then do a new brush. Make these a little darker. Go back to my lighter brush. And a little tighter. Okay. And maybe a little vibrancy, or I might have to separate things because there's some reds and greens in here I could mess with, but maybe vibrancy will do it. Try vibrant. Yeah, I think vivid looks better here. All right, let me see where I'm at. Okay. A little bit more brushing. Maybe let's use the masking brush and just try and grab some of this grass. Back to my regular brush. A bit more light in here. Okay, I think I'll call it there. Export that. All right, so here's the original on the right. My edit there on the left. Again, I feel like I can't quite get the depth of the image that I want, because clearly, you know, there's some distance between these rocks and these rocks in the foreground. But because they're cut off, I can't get that depth that I want. So I decided to just focus on the textures and separate, you know, kind of separate the layers of this rock and try to create some depth that way. So if we, yeah, if we, sorry, we can zoom in and kind of see the difference. Like in this area here, bringing out the details in the rock. And then just making the shadows much stronger so that there's better separation. You can just see the layers a little better. But yeah, look at the difference in how much detail we can pull out between the unedited raw. Okay, I hope that made sense. All right, very good. Let's go to the next one. And for this one, we have a nice reflection here. We need to brighten the bird's face a little bit and maybe, okay, so let's apply basic preset. And then I need to tilt this a little bit. So the bird looks like it's facing down a little bit more. And let's crop in about there. This is a 3x2. Quite right. Go into the bird's face a little bit. Brighten this up, but a half a stop. Let's pull everything else down a a stop. Maybe a little more. Right about there. Oh crap. I need to get this module. Thank you, Larry. Icon Z63. Nice. The Z100 to 400. All right, there we go. Better. Much better. All right. Let's go to the bird's face. And let's see if we can just brighten up this front area a little bit. Do a little bit of clear view and micro contrast. Okay. Go back to the bird itself. Let's add some vibrancy. Okay. Go back to this control point, add a little bit of warmth. I think the image globally could use a little warmth. Too much. Oh, there's a very strong green cast here, isn't there? Just add a touch of magenta back in. And I think the bird looks okay. Need a little light over here. Let's go back. Might be able to use the same control point. Ah, it's a little bit too strong. Let's make a new one. Okay. Let's temper the highlights a bit. Okay. And then let's work on the water. Okay. I'll select everything there. Give some clear view, maybe pull the blacks in a bit. And I think we could stand to use a little blurrier background. Let's go ahead and create that just a little bit, just to about here. About 10%. And then we'll hole punch the bird out. Oops. Drag that in here. There we go. And the graduated filter. Yeah. Right about there. Still a really strong green cast here. Maybe it needs a little less green somewhere. A bit there. Try. Maybe push the reds a bit. This beak has, I mean, maybe the bird has kind of a green tint to it overall, but I don't think so. Okay, right about there. All right, let's just create an overall vignette. Out there. That. And I want to temper the luminance over here. And let's add a little bit of light back onto the reflection because we added light to the bird, so the reflection should be a little bit brighter too. Clear view. Maybe a brush would have been better. That last one. All right. Get rid of this one stick. Slightly tighter crop. A little bit of warmth, a little more warmth on the face. Okay, I think I'm done. So back off the brightening here a little bit. So this bird is a Sora. Oh, this is your shot, huh, Larry? Okay, cool. I didn't do the talons, but you can just barely see them anyway. Okay, so there's the original on the right. And then here's the edit. So nice tight crop, plenty of detail to work with anyway. Now the bird is much more emphasized here because here the bird is just kind of part of the algae, really. It blends in pretty well. I guess if a hawk was looking from the top down, it'd be harder to see him. But for us, we want to see him, right? And, you know, one thing you want to remember is when there's a reflection like this and you brighten the bird up, you want to definitely brighten the reflection up as well. So it kind of matches, right? I mean, not always, but that's what I like to do. And I can see there's a discoloration right here. So it looks like there might have been a piece of grass or some reed, you know, kind of in front of the bird that's taking a little bit away the detail from here, because it goes up to about here. It may stop, but it may kind of go into this area. So that's why I was struggling a little bit here. But let's go ahead and punch in. I didn't do any of the fine detail, but I probably don't need to do any. It looks pretty good as it is. But the main thing was just brightening up the face a little bit, and the eye just kind of went with it. But yeah, there's this green. Now this green cast is probably coming from, he's eating algae, so this green is probably natural, right? Actually there. But I wanted to minimize that too. Oh, there's, you know, there's some speculars here I could have used. Let me just do that real quick. Because it looks like he just poked into the water there. Maybe just a small brush. Oops. A little bit smaller here. Just right in here, a little bit extra. And there's a little motion blur there too. So he just plucked something out of the water and missed. But anyway, you get the idea, right? I missed that on the initial edit. There's a little bit of speculars here we could work with. Probably need to desaturate it a little bit. And then push them a little more. Something like that, right? Okay, very good. Tiny fish swimming around, that's really cool. All right, nice architecture scene. Gosh, haven't seen anything from Andrew in a while. That's cool. Let's apply basic preset. And I'm gonna do perspective correction. Maybe back it off a little bit. Okay, there we go. And then we just have to separate the lighting here. It's a little bit off. I think right about there. Let's try and balance this. What is this? Is this a beam to a bridge? Nowhere? So, wow. I think black and white might be the way to go because there's so many colors here. But they're all very faint, other than the very strong tungsten here. All of this lighting, this is going to be really difficult to accentuate. Let me just see a black and white. Yeah. On the one hand, I kind of like a couple of the accents in the lighting. I'm going to work in color first, but I may convert this to black and white. Let's just warm up this image even more. And let's push the oranges and magentas. I'm a little brighter. And then I think this is green. Let's see. Kind of a green orange, but let's get away from the orange. Just saturate the greens. Give that a little more light. Okay. The sky, let's see. Just make that a little darker. And let's add a little brightness to some of these buildings. Like this one. Add some micro contrast. This building. Give it some warmth. Micro contrast. How about this building? Let me make a new mask. Yeah, just a half a stop or so. Okay, this composition, I gotta do something. Let's see. I feel like maybe this side is everything we want in it. Okay. Little heavy, but maybe just a brush. Okay. And a little brightness. Okay. Okay. All right. Uh, Getting a little too contrasty. Go back to the sky. When was it? This one, right? I think a little bit of glow in the sky is good. And then that building. I need to a little bit of haloing around it. I'm going to use a negative brush. All right, that's better. Okay, this walkway. Hi, Henning. How are you? I see you just came in. Awesome. All right, I'm going to call it there. Why is it so cold in this room? Not, I'm just cold. Oh, hands are cold. Give me a second. It's going to be nice today. We're going to get into the 50s, but I'm freezing for some reason. Okay. Uh, so yeah, I did a pretty heavy crop on this image. I just couldn't balance this right side too well with the left side. And the left side had more of a leading line into the scene. Maybe I should have included this part of the street right in here, but you know, this pillar right here is the problem. And this building being a little shorter, everything's just, the left side is so much heavier than the right side. You know, a lot of the lighting's here. This building is just bigger and thicker. You know, a lot of lighting from here, this railing. So I just went with the left side and just amplified the lighting, right, and warmed it up a bit. And I think this is a little more balanced image. I probably could have cropped in a little differently, but lighting wise and general composition, I think this is what works best for this shot. And then working with the lighting. Okay, let's see. Last one here, and then we'll see if there's any edits. That you guys sent in for me to look at. So we're going to apply basic preset. And Ah, this is interesting lighting coming in. I think I just have to, let me see. Ironically, I need to make the water a little bit lighter because it's just kind of getting lost unless you want to go complete silhouette on the water, in which case you could do something like that. Yeah, let's do something a little dramatic. So I'm just going to bring the blacks in. Let's do it with local adjustments. Composition, I think we're okay. Maybe just do a 3x2. Just come in a little bit this way. Okay. And let's just silhouette it. Okay. Maybe just use, just, what do you call this? Selection brush, auto masking brush to kind of get the rocks back there. And then maybe select the duck. Need a little push in the shadows and blacks, I think. Not the blacks. A little push in the shadows. Just use a control point. Temper the highlights a bit. Okay, let's see if we can bring the eye out a little better with some clear view. Because it's bright enough, we can see the color in the pupil. I think we just need maybe just a little bit of brightening. And go back to the duck. Add a little vibrancy. And then add a control point. Tighten up the luma. Just add some brightness there. Maybe some vibrancy. Okay. Now I need to kind of get rid of some of this specular just a little bit. So maybe control points. Hmm. Okay, I think that's it. Let's just check the fine detail. Maybe, where's the duck? This one. Add a little bit. Bit of sharpening. Okay. A little bit too crispy, but that's okay. Export that. Okay, so just a silhouette in this case, right? It was either that or brighten up the water and capture all the reflections in the background, the foreground. But I think this silhouette works. It's kind of a different take, a little more creative take on it, and a little bit of vibrancy on the duck. And we can just kind of punch in and see the details. You know, what a nice job that optics module does, right? Bringing out the fine feather details. Fantastically sharp. What is this lens? Oh, 300 f4. No wonder. Okay, very nice. All right, so let's go to what you guys edit. So, if anything's come in. Wow, a lot of edits came in. I think, hold on. 8, 9. All right, here we go. So three of you guys sent your edits in. Let me download these and we'll compare them side by side with mine. Oops. I think I accidentally overwrote my own edit. Okay, it's easy enough to get the edit back. So we have one. Let's start with Paul's. Paul converted to black and white. Where? So this is my edit. That has the reference. I don't. Where did? Hold on. Let me try and download that again. Download. There it is. Okay. Nice edit, Paul. Really good job on the sun. You were able to get some flaring in here. You probably, wow. You got a little bit of a sun star going on. I totally missed that. I like that. And yeah, you brightened up the columns, but not the ceiling here. But yeah, it's a good edit. Really nice black and white. I was debating black and white, but then I like the blue and this orange, this contrast of color. But I was a little more even-handed on the lighting here than you were. This is painfully obvious. You brightened up the columns. But I like what you did with the sun. And the overall edit is nice. Let's see. Why? Oh, here we go. And then the other edit that came in was the rock, right? So this is mine. And then This is Paul's edit. So yeah, Paul cropped in a little bit. This was my initial thought too, right? Was to use these two rocks here as sort of anchors to the corners. But it just felt weird to me that this gap, that would imply like the water's kind of, oh, you can't see it. Um, we'll go back. I'm sorry. We'll go back to Paul's edit. I was just jibber jabbering there and I didn't realize I wasn't sharing the screen. But on this one here, this is Paul Crisp. So my initial thought was similar, like try to use these two rocks here as anchors to the corners. But it was just kind of weird. This space here kind of implies the water's flowing towards you. So I just couldn't make this work for me. And then I did a lot more work on bringing out the textures and adding kind of layers to the rock face. Like you can clearly see, like with mine here, it kind of bends in underneath to the water, whereas here it looks like it's kind of flat up against the water. I just try to create more depth with light on this side. And then going back to oh, Paul sent in two, a rock face and this. Okay, so Paul Crisp. Another Paul Crisp. Okay. Sorry, I thought maybe there was two Pauls in here, but it's just you. Okay. So Paul's edit is nice. I was saying like I like the sun flares. I really wasn't able to pull that off on mine. Because you can see, you might be able to see the flaring kind of continues into the frame down here, which really works well. You also brushed out that little cup that was here, like I kept it here, right? I saw that kind of after I was done. And then the columns, as I was saying, you kind of brighten the columns, but not the ceiling here. Whereas I was a little more even on that, right? And I like the color of this kind of brown against this blue. But nice. And you brighten up the shadows on the wall too. It's a little bit less contrasty, right? Overall, I tried to make mine strong color, strong contrast. But again, this illustrates how subjective editing can be. Even though the editing on both are really good, the subjective choices were very different. And that's why this is not a critique in any way, right, of anyone's photos. It's just showing the tools and stuff. And then the rocks wasn't yours? Why does it say Paul Crisp in the file name? Like, it says Paul Crisp here. Well, anyway, okay. And there was one more edit somebody sent in. Oh, the duck. Okay. So I think, yeah, that was my edit. And then this was William's edit. Oh, good. Uh-oh. Here we go. Okay, so William did a square crop. Very nice. And you decided to work with, all of the, this, I like this better. This silhouette is kind of a creative choice, so some people might like this better creatively. But if this were, really, if I was going to do this photo, I'd probably done what William did here and just kept all of the background in here. But yeah, it's a really, really good edit. The only thing you didn't do was the eye here. I kind of brightened mine just a little bit, right? You can see the difference in the eye. I think that's the only thing missing here on your edit. Out of everything you did, that's the only thing I would have maybe emphasized a little more. But very nice. All right, so that was awesome. A lot of great shots today. A lot of bird, I'm a birding wildlife guy, right? So I really enjoyed those kind of shots. But I like them all. Architecture, landscape, lots of great photos, lots of good texture, lots of great ways to demonstrate, the tools in DxO and the differences. So and that's why I do this, right? So we can learn together about editing, talk about composition, and um, just come together and hang out on a Friday. Why not, right? The weekend's coming. We're all going to go out shooting this weekend, I hope. Um, it's great being here with you guys today. Thanks so much for sending your images in for me to edit. I'll be back again next week, Friday. So send some more in for me to edit. That'll be great because I enjoy doing this. And as always, if you want to support the work that I do here, you can buy me a coffee or become a member or use the affiliate links down below to buy from Amazon and B&H. All of that is greatly appreciated. Thanks so much.